What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem, and welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome to the Mechwarrior 5 Clan story-driven campaign playthrough, where I go ahead and watch all the cutscenes, listen to all the banter, comment on what's going on, and lore surrounding all the stuff while utilizing stock mech builds only. This is part 33, so we've come a long way. Technically, it's the 34th mission in the campaign. I did 2 missions in the first part. And we are here on the world of Luthien, the capital world of the Draconis Combine. This isn't the end of the clan invasion, but this is the final world of the campaign itself. There's only a couple more missions after this one, so let's have some fun with it. We are landing on Luthien for the first time to take the fight to the Draconis Combine and their elite forces, as well as their many planetary defense forces. So, strap in and prepare for drop.
An hour and a half ago, the first Jaguar guards made first contact with the enemy along Basin Lake. They took heavy losses as they were lured into a field of Viper mines and booby-trapped drones, only to then be greeted by the Otomo, the royal guard of House Kurita. Demi-Presenter, you assured us that the Otomo would not travel far from the Imperial Palace. Why are they here?
Respectfully, Star Colonel, I said it was unlikely for them to venture far from the Imperial Palace. If they are here, then there is a high probability that a member of the ruling family has taken the field.
Moving on, the first Jaguar Guard was able to push the Kuritan line back from Basin Lake to the southern tip of the Waseda Hills, where the first and second Sword of Light have held them to a standstill. We have been called up to break this standstill and punch through the Kuritan's battle line to blow the entire front open. The first Jaguar Guard believes this location to be our best chance of breaking through. A mountain fortification that, if taken, gives us valuable high ground and flanking routes on other DCMS positions.
Why this location? Typically, strongholds such as this are force multipliers for the defenders. Any aggressor would be at a serious disadvantage.
The DCMS has spread its forces thin, attempting to prevent us from bypassing their battle line and making a break for the Imperial City. The Jaguar Guard believes this location is undermanned because of this. If we manage to take this fortification, we can then leverage it as a rallying point and staging center for our push into the Imperial City. Galaxy Commander Dorian Worth thinks it is worth the risk, so we will see it taken. Any questions?
No, Star Colonel.
Good hunting out there, everyone.
Alright, time for a little dragon slaying. 500 tons of fury, all dire wolves all the time for the rest of the campaign, so get used to that. I like this mission. I enjoy the mission overview briefing there. We get just enough from Comstar to show that they're both, giving us valuable insight, but also get a sense that they might be holding something back. And that could just be my paranoia against Comstar, but I definitely don't trust them. And the more Demi-Presenter talks, the more I don't trust them. And we get a little bit of a Galaxy Commander, Star Colonel Star Colonel Cordero Perez. He's no longer a Galaxy Commander and hasn't been. But we get a decent, question from him of why we want to take that particular facility, because yeah, it's a fortification and this is a defense and that's a force multiplier, but we have a good reasoning for it. Star Colonel Wimmer gives us a very good reasoning for it, so it makes sense to me. Forces are stretched thin, we need to punch holes in their defenses, and we can take an air base and push forward, all the better for our cause. So we are definitely on the front lines. This is the thick of the fighting. We're going to face everything. We're going to face air assets, ground assets, mech assets, turrets, artillery. Be on your toes here. There will be an allied force to help us. You definitely want to capitalize on that. So try and destroy things before they get taken out. Because the more mechs on our side means the more the enemy has to shoot at that isn't us. And the more damage, in essence, quote-unquote, free damage can go downrange on the enemy without us expending ammo and the like. So definitely want to work on that. But this is the thick of it. We're going to be facing the Sword of Light. We're going to be facing other defenders. So we need to just destroy everything. This is going to be a good case of having your star focus on, let's say, a mech while you destroy some ground assets, or you and focus on a different mech while they shoot another mech, and so on. You don't have to get super crazy micromanaging if you don't want to. I don't typically do that, but if you're good at it, you can definitely micromanage like crazy on this stuff to have your star facing multiple things down while you're facing things down, and then kind of collapse on whatever stays alive as more and more things get destroyed. Watch out for your allies. They like to walk right in front of your shots. And yeah, we're facing multiple different weight classes of mechs. We're facing different types of mechs. We're facing, like I said, air, ground, the works. It's a fun mission. It reminds me of like Turtle Bay, the first mission there, when we, just started the invasion of Turtle Bay. Only we have a lot more tonnage now, and there's a lot more thrown at us, and it's not as rigid a battle line. It's a little more fluid, which is pretty cool. In any case, with that said, this is the home stretch. There's only a couple more missions after this one. All the missions are longer than the missions prior, so you'll see that here. This mission definitely goes on longer than pretty much any mission of the past. Not that that's a bad thing. It doesn't drag, at least not for me playing it and enjoying it, but it definitely is a slog. You definitely now have to be more aware of length and scope of what you're doing. So that means if you are going a bit more ammo heavy, being a bit more conscious of your shots, and also not just face tanking hits all the while, but utilizing all your advantages, which is pretty cool. So we are invading Luthien, the capital world of the Draconis Combine, but it's not just Smoke Jaguar. As you saw in the prior part, Clan Novacats are also in this invasion as well. It's a joint invasion in a disjointed manner, which is kind of the way clans do most things, which is one of their bigger weaknesses in terms of their strength. Like, I guess a strike against them is they don't really work together that well. They don't play well with others like you might expect or want them to. So it's not just in this case. In a lot of cases, when the clans do fight alongside one another, it's like too many battles to encompass the campaign, or too many like campaigns in a campaign. So Novacat is attacking Luthien as well, but they're attacking their own sector, doing their own thing, relaying just terse information, if you will, about what they're doing, or the effectiveness, or how they're faring, right? So as a result, we will never see Novacat. If you play the Warden path, you'll see Novacat because you'll be facing them in the first mission, but we won't ever see them on our side here. They're doing their own thing in their own theater, if you will. So that, of course, isn't necessarily the best way to handle things in a joint invasion of such a fortified world like Luthien, but it's the way the clans do business. They don't play well with others, more or less. Especially when the two clans hate each other, like Novacat and Smoke Jaguar. But, thanks to the new Ilkhan, Ulrich Kerensky of Clan Wolf, who is, I feel, the primary orchestrator of trying to get the invasion to peter off, we have to work alongside, as best we can, forces that will see us hampered at every turn. But what can you do? Jade Falcon also has to deal with this with the Steel Vipers. So with that said, pay attention to the enemy ground assets and even the air assets, because you don't want to just leave them alone. The LRM carriers, the tanks that have a bunch of long-range missiles on them, you definitely want to drop them quick, because they have 6 LRM-10s now. So they're an LRM-60 carrier. That's a lot of firepower. You definitely want to, deal with that. The VTOLs, the standard helicopter VTOLs, might be the least threatening things, but you still want to take care of them. They're going to be more accurate now. Demolisher heavy tanks have 2 AC-20s, and while I feel like they don't do much at all, when they do, you'll feel it. So you want to be careful there. We got the bombers, of course. There's artillery. I like to try and take everything out before moving forward, so that's why it takes me a little bit longer to make progress. for two reasons. A, I don't want the enemy sneaking up on me later, and we'll see that happen because there'll be one mech I didn't even know existed that will suddenly show up after we take the base. So there's that. And it might even be that mech I just looked at, though I highly doubt it. It's probably another version of it later on. Anyways, yeah, I don't think it's that one, because I think it's a dervish, actually, but it doesn't matter. The point is, you don't want them suddenly surprising you out of nowhere. And more importantly, your AI allies, whether it's your own star or an allied star, the ones in blue in my sensors, will move weirdly if there's enemy in your flank that you leave alive, and they're aware of their existence. They'll either try and chase it down in the case of an allied star, and if you don't issue orders to your star mates, they might freeze up or move weirdly. So if you take them all out, they can't do anything except path the way they're supposed to, so that's nice. With that said, we saw some more air assets. We have turrets. Even the turrets are dangerous by this point. They have been getting more dangerous, but you definitely don't want to leave turrets alone. Even double SRM-6 turrets, that's a decent punch for a turret. Quad AC-2s can fire fast and strip you down of armor if you let them just whittle you down. 2 large lasers. It's all going to be a more impressive thing. There's the LRM-60 carrier. You definitely want to drop those, because if they start unleashing their missiles, that's a lot of firepower to whittle down your armor. Partisan heavy tanks, you want to take down those for all their AC-2s. Just everything hurts. Either AC-2s or AC-5s. I think they used to have AC-2s. They might be upgraded to AC-5s now. I don't know. But yeah, pretty powerful stuff. Anyways, like I was saying, pretty powerful stuff that you don't want to leave hitting you. It's not like, oh no, one partisan tank, we're doomed, but you don't want to let that whittle you down. So, we are not going to see Novacat, like I was saying. This planet is unique in that it has 2 different paths, right? If you went and defected with Ezra, you would be playing this from this perspective of the Warden philosophy, and from the perspective of Wolf Dragoons, because you'll be here. And you'll be facing Novacat in your first mission here. And of course, you play it the proper way, which is Crusader. With Smoke Jaguar, you stick with them. You're facing, of course, the Sword of Light and the Luthien Planetary Defense Force eventually, which are going to have crazy numbers on their side. So we have more missions than what we'll actually play here, because it's broken up. And I think that's partly why we don't get as many missions on this planet. I think the other thing is we don't really need them. These missions are longer, there's more layers to them, they're more complex, and they feel good. They feel like a good capstone, if you will, to the whole campaign. It's just interesting they chose Luthien, and I'll discuss why later in a different future part. I like the radio banter we've been getting. Alexander, shows respect to the strength of Draconis Combine. There's a lot of forces that are throwing against us. They're well coordinated, and they attack ruthlessly, and the clans, doesn't matter which clan they are, they do value strength. They might view strength a bit differently, but there's also some universal strength, and when they see it, they can respect that. Doesn't matter which clan it is. So I do enjoy that little banter we had. But with that said, we do have the Sword of Light here, and we are going to have a whole lot more of the defense forces to deal with on top of their more elite fighters. So, like I said, definitely conserve your ammunition if you're going to be more ammo heavy. Make every shot count at that point. Keep an eye out in scam mode for any ammo crates. I forget where they are. Sometimes certain missions don't even have them, so that's why I say if you're going to go with a custom build or just stock builds that are more ammo dependent, be careful, especially in these longer missions. So let us continue pushing forward. We have a Griffin which has an ECM on it, so that's going to be why your HUD goes a little wonky. We definitely want to eventually deal with that, although it's not as big of a priority as it's necessarily dealing with the heavier hitting mechs out there, so deal with that as you may. So we are at Luthien. clearly. I said this already, and we know that. But this is like the final wave of clan invasion before the Battle of Tukayed or Tukayed or however you want to pronounce it. I never actually heard it pronounced properly, so I have no idea. And that means that there will be no other waves of invading multiple systems. So you might not get the best sense of just how devastating the clan invasion is to the Inner Sphere if this is your first kind of introduction to the clans and to Battletech and to this era of the setting. You get an okay introduction to it at the start. After you take Santander, we learn that Smoke Jaguar will attack 10 systems simultaneously, and the other clans will do stuff very similarly. But that's about it. We don't really hear about how many systems are being attacked after that. So we attack Turtle Bay, and then we attack Courchevel, and now we're at Luthien. So by this time, with this battle on Luthien, Smoke Jaguar alone would have conquered over 30 systems. By the end of the invasion, Smoke Jaguar will have conquered almost 40 systems. The other three invasion corridors are going to have very similar numbers, with Clan Wolf having even more numbers. This is a tremendous amount of ground taken in a very short amount of time. Remember, the invasion started in 3050, and it ends in 3052, basically. But we have a year of peace, more or less, when the primary forces, all the Blood Name Warriors and the like, went back to the clan space to get elected to Ilkhan. So it's not even a full 2 years of fighting, and we have this much Inner Sphere space conquered. And what I thought would have been really cool, if let's say in the barracks or whatever, you had a star map that would occasionally update at certain points in the campaign that you could click on to see just the differences in the Inner Sphere's territory as we progress through the invasion. Not just for Smoke Jaguar, but for all four invasion corridors, so you can get a real sense of where the Inner Sphere map starts, and then at the end of the campaign of this game, anyway, you can get a sense of just how much how many systems was taken or were taken by the clans from the Inner Sphere across all four invasion corridors, because it's actually an impressive amount given how big the Inner Sphere actually is. Again, remembering that the total time span, counting a year of peace roughly, is from 3050 to 3052. So the whole point of that rant is to say that the invasion has been much more effective and devastating for the Inner Sphere than you might be led on to believe if all you know is what this campaign is showing you. And it's not a fault of the campaign. We're not omnipresent, right? We're a Cobalt Star and we fight in specific areas, so we're only going to know what goes on in those areas. There's been a couple of mission briefings where we saw the star map, but it doesn't really help drive the point that the Inner Sphere has taken some brutal hits. On top of that, you'll notice I've been saying system. So the way this works, as we clear up the defenders of this airbase, the way this works is you have the principal world that basically is the name of the system. An example would be the Terra system. So Earth is known as Terra, as well as Earth, but principally known as Terra by humanity in Battletech at this time. And so while we know the system is called the Solar System, it's also referred to as the Terra system. And the worlds, despite having names that we know and that they know in the setting, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, etc., they are going to be numbered as Terra 1 for Mercury, from closest to the stars or furthest away from the stars. So Earth is Terra 3. And while in that example we know other names for the planets, other systems won't be named like that. Or other worlds and other systems won't necessarily have quote-unquote regional names, let's say, because it'll just be, let's say, Turtle Bay 1, Turtle Bay 2, or however many planets are actually in that system. So real quick, before we get back to that, we're dealing with a Soul Call, which isn't as bad because we're 5 dire wolves, but now we have a Hadamado Chi, we have a Catapult, and a Warhammer on top of that Soul Call, so it gets a little spicy. By this time, you should have destroyed one engine like I have, so I kind of recommend that you, when you start, try to whittle down the Hadamado Chi pretty quickly. and then have your star more or less focus on the rest while you try to reacquire that soul coal and take it out. It can be hard to find at times because depending upon its pathing. But luckily, the other mechs, and until you find the soul coal, you can lay your weight of fire into it as well. But once you eventually get the soul coal, you should deal with it because I think the player does a better job of dealing with the soul coal than the AI does at times. And then your AI can finish off the mechs, and you can help with that too. Anyways, so the point is, back to the systems. I don't know how many worlds are in, for example, Turtle Bay's system or Courchevel's system. Typically, you're conquering the world that's inhabited and lived on, and there might be other worlds that just aren't, but there might be resource worlds or storage things or whatever the case might be. So here's an example. We have a dervish, I believe, that's suddenly popped up out of nowhere, finally made its way up here to challenge us. And I didn't even know it existed, because if I did, it would have been taken out. So, you know, this caught us while we're trying to do repairs. Luckily, nobody's super critically damaged, and that mech wasn't that big of a threat. But that's why, one of the reasons why I like taking out things and just moving forward, not leaving stuff in the rear. Anyways, so while by the end of the invasion, Smoke Jaguar will have conquered nearly 40 systems, that is technically more than 40 worlds, because there can be multiple worlds in the system. Even if they're not inhabited, they can still be useful for resources and the like. And we may only see one inhabited world, but you know, Smoke Jaguar could have had other forces take out the lesser defended worlds. So my point is that while we are nearing the end of this campaign, there are worlds that will be conquered by Smoke Jaguar after this battle on Luthien, and when that's all said and done, we'll have conquered way more worlds than you might realize if your only real experience to this story of what's going on at this point in time is through the game. It's a great game, but it's also not giving us an omnipresent viewpoint, so you're not going to realize that. We're passing underneath the Draconis Combine symbol, which always reminded me of Mortal Kombat. Feels very similar. That's not a bad thing. So we have just taken our first objective, by the way. We are roughly just about going to be 20 minutes into the actual fighting itself, not counting the mission briefing. But of recording this and counting the mission briefing, we are 20 minutes in and have just moved forward towards our second objective. So with that said, in this area you will encounter potential issues. This is going to be the second time I've encountered this. And I really only ever encountered it in this mission, not really in other missions. And this is my star mates getting hung up on terrain features. And I'm going to go into the main menu, I believe, at least one more time. Not because I wanted to do anything, but because of other games that I play, you get the muscle memory to try and back out of something by hitting escape. So you can't, you know, if you go into scan mode, you on the keyboard you hit tab, then you hit tab again and get out of it. But I'll think later that I can hit escape, and you can't. You just pause the game. So sometimes I try to back out of something by hitting escape, and it doesn't work here. Anyways, back to the gaming. So in Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, you probably noticed that your lance mates would get hung up on terrain features at times and just kind of pivot in place and not really walk anywhere and be really annoying. That happened several times. To me, like multiple times in Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, which resulted in the mission taking longer, trying to get the AI to snap out of it and follow me. Well, I've had it happen exactly one time prior to this recording, and that was the first time I tried to record this mission, where I would get a member of my star just stuck. Not even stuck in something, they're not clipped into it. The AI, for some reason, wigs out and just doesn't move. And if you don't, at least in the first time I caught it, I didn't catch it in time, and I couldn't get the mech to move, period. So I restarted the recording and restarted everything. And you're going to notice it happens again here. I'm going to notice it sooner than I did before, and I'm going to guide the mech out. It's only happens in this area of the game for me anyway. I think it's the buildings and the way they're arrayed and how they're on sometimes on a platform in comparison to the rest of the terrain features, and they get hung up. I'm not sure exactly why, but you're going to notice it here. So we just took out a Stalker, which is an assault mech. There's a Highlander, which is an assault mech. We have turrets. We have a Demolisher tank and other tanks. So there's a lot of being thrown against us all the while. Like, it's very clear we're attacking a very important world. I like the Highlander mech. I think it's a pretty cool design. It has jump jets as an assault mech, which is pretty cool too. It does mean that its firepower will take a little bit of a hit in comparison to other mechs of its weight class, because you have to account for armor and jump jets. But hey, not the biggest of deals. So you'll notice on the sensors right now, I have a green dot that's not moving off in the distance. And I didn't notice it yet, but I will. That is one of my star mates stuck on terrain. And stuck is the wrong word. The AI just stopped moving. So technically, I am facing this with a star worth of mechs, but one of them's a summoner I have no control over. So there is a scannable, and we will do that as I move towards my stuck AI, and there I go again. But in any case, I don't know who that is. I think it'll eventually tell me. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to just blow stuff up or destroy things to maybe help get the AI out of there. I don't know if it does. But it's not Naomi, because Naomi has a fire support direwolf with LRM-20s, I believe. So here we go, moving along. And finally, between moving in a path that has a direct line of sight to me and blowing up the corner of that building, we got the direwolf to move. It's going to happen again. And really, it's just this section I've noticed it. Nowhere else in the mission have I noticed it. It doesn't mean it couldn't happen, I just never noticed it, or it fixed itself if it did. But we are making progress. We just have to kind of really kind of walk our allies through this area. I think it's the buildings and their positioning causing the AI programming to just be like, well, I can't fit, even though they can. Because that will happen. You'll notice it more in Mechwarrior Online, but there are certain missions in both Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, and I think even here, even though I don't recall running into it in Mechwarrior 5 Clans, where you'll have a gap. You think you can move through it, but as you go to, your mech just stops because it's not destructible terrain and you can't fit. And I think the AI is going to assume it can't fit in these instances for whatever reason and just stops moving. So we have this happening again here. My recommendation to help with this is to order your AI to move to certain specific spots throughout the fight, and I think it'll help, but I don't know. Nevertheless, I do get that direwolf unstuck, and now I'm basically going to eventually turn around and walk backwards just to make sure my star's actively moving with me. So yeah, just a little bit of the quirkiness of the game, and it's not anything I think wrong in the design of the place. I think the AI is just something in its way it's programmed is wigging out here, and it's the only spot I really noticed it in this game itself. So just be extra careful with that. Anyways, we do have a couple more repair bays, as Alexander said. There's going to be 2 of them. Use them after dealing with the firefight in here, though, because you're going to have more to fight, because why wouldn't you? So these patent tanks aren't as dangerous as some of the others, but they still have an AC-10 and some flamers, so you know, don't just forget about them. But you know, if you want to fight off, I don't know, the mechs first, by all means do so, as mechs are always going to be the more dangerous thing to deal with, even in comparison to Demolisher tanks. So as I was saying earlier, and kind of got sidetracked and maybe completed my statement, I honestly can't recall. We don't know how many worlds are in these systems that are taken by the clans. So, you know, almost 40 systems total taken, 3 other invasion corridors doing similar, with Clan Wolf taking the most, means it's a lot. So it would be cool to kind of see in game just what that looks like on the star map, and you can see a star map of this by searching for it online. It's just, it would have been cool to have that in the game to help drive the point home that yes, you only fought on, in this case, 3 worlds in the inner sphere, but so much more is happening, so many other worlds returning for this clan and the other clans, without us being cognizant of it because we're not omnipresent in the story. As you saw, you can utilize the mech base to walk through if you need to. You don't have to walk around them. You don't automatically repair. Should be clear by now. I never made mention of it, but if you haven't played the game, in order to repair, you have to activate it. So you have to walk far enough in it to activate, and then you have to be able to activate it by holding down the associated key before you walk out of it. So either you walk really slow and don't stop walking because you'll shut down on auto stop, or you walk in and then you stop, and then you repair. In any case, unless you've been able to really take very little damage from the prior repair, chances are you will need to repair. So there are some ancillary vehicle assets that are being taken out, possibly some turrets. So I repaired myself, because of course I did, and then I repaired good old Yuichi because he had the lowest remaining armor, or lowest mech health, you could say. So I'm looking around, making sure there isn't anything to worry about, and then I'm gonna go get the scannable. There is a turret, but it's a short-range missile turret, I believe. So it's not the end of the world. No, that's a quad AC2 turret. Definitely something to worry about. I thought there was another one, but it's a direct fire style of war gear. So as long as you're behind buildings while doing stuff, it can't pester you. Just make sure you take it out ASAP. Which they did in spades. So we are still progressing to the main objective, right? It's a long mission, but you know, we've been whittling down the enemy's firepower, so that's pretty good. However, we did not issue patrols, so we don't know what is going to be defending, you know, this planet from us. And now we just have a curveball thrown at us, a little bit of a wrench thrown into the works. We have non-DCMS forces ahead of us to resist us. Now, a patrol doesn't mean that the Draconis Combine would honor it and actually tell us who we're facing, but we would have a much better understanding. So, immediately, even before Yuichi told us, we see that we're facing a clan mech, the Mad Dog. There's also going to be a Timberwolf, so that's not good. That's clan assets that we're facing, and as well as flyers and whatnot, and a Zeus assault mech. And this is because it's a mercenary company, Wolf Dragoons. Wolf Dragoons is a very powerful mercenary company, very able. Also, not really a fan of the Draconis Combine, so it's surprising to see them here, but they brought a lot of powerful assets, including another Sokol. And the thing is, the reason why this is so shocking, you could say, and not expected, is because the DCMS really does not like mercenaries, in particular Wolf Dragoons, and they actually have, as we know from Comstar, which is true, a death to mercenaries edict, particularly for their homeworld, or I say homeworld, their capital world of Luthien. What this means is mercenaries are not allowed to set foot on this world under penalty of death, and in general, the DCMS doesn't particularly like having to deal with mercenaries, especially in particularly important matters with like the royal family and whatever else. So the fact that they're here is a game changer because they're not supposed to be here. It is a little bit confusing. So as a result, we need to kind of reassess. It doesn't change our objective, but now we just have to be on our toes for atypical fighting styles, atypical organization of forces, and tech and strategies that are not going to be in line with what we expect out of Draconis Combine because, well, they're not Draconis Combine. This Sokol is pretty lightweight in terms of firepower against us. I think it's 2 LRM-5s. It's going to fire pretty quickly, and it can deal with your armor in a rather annoying way. But honestly, it's what's what I'm looking for. It's obvious because it's obviously less powerful against us because LRM5s are spread fire weapons. They don't do a lot of damage, but it can still pester you. And you don't want to leave it because I don't know how much ammunition it has, but it does like to fire a lot. So it's a it's not a Draconis Combine Sokol, that's a Wolf's Dragoon Sokol. In fact, everything we're facing in this last section of the mission is Wolf's Dragoon assets, I believe. Definitely the mechs, probably the vehicles as well. So the Wolf Dragoons is a very large, very capable mercenary company. They started off as clan forces. They were sent in as part of the Dragoon Compromise to get intel on the Inner Sphere, and would eventually kind of defect from that and stop sending intel back. Trueborn warriors that were part of it, like Natasha Kerensky, would eventually adhere to the recall order and return to clan space to join for the invasion, but a lot of forces stuck with the Wolf Dragoons as they kind of defected to the Inner Sphere side, which, oh, there goes that Sokol, which fits with the Warden philosophy more or less. They're trying to uphold that as they did come from pretty much Clan Wolf. In any case, though, while they are a dangerous force, we need to punch through them anyway, and it changes nothing for what we have to do. And what we have to do is destroy these power generators. So we have a partisan heavy tank to deal with. We have turrets. There's a Victor, which is an assault mech. There's a Warhawk, which is obviously very powerful, and it's a prime, so that's 4 ear PPCs against us. And there's also going to be a Marauder 2, and an Annihilator. So there's a lot of firepower brought against us, and we are a bit worn, right? Even with the repairing, like my mech's been taking hits because I'm the primary mech to get hit by the AI, and ammunition is going to be running low, even if you're conserving at this point. It's going to be a slog of a fight for sure. Now, one thing I'm not certain about with this game is how it differentiates clan and Inner Sphere tech, because you'll never notice in this game a mixture of the two. Other games you will, but that won't happen here. A, we only use clan tech. B, it would only really be mercenaries who predominantly would mix tech, at least for the time being. So what that means is, what I'm getting at is, I have 4 ER large lasers. That's clan tech. Star League era tech can also be, which is known as Lost Tech, and would just start to be rebuilt by the Inner Sphere around this time, because they would gain the means to, would also have ER large lasers. In games that you can mix and match tech, or at least make use of mix and match tech, in terms of having clan and Inner Sphere tech mechs on your side or whatever, would denote technology by clan or Inner Sphere, and the way they would do that is, with these ER large lasers that I'm using, there would be a C in front of it, so it would be CER L laser, clan extended range large laser. That distinction isn't made here, so I am curious if this game has a distinction in the capabilities between Star League era stuff that has ER, like ER PPCs and stuff like that, versus clan tech. Because technically clan tech is more advanced than even the Star League tech that would be utilized as Lost Tech by the Inner Sphere. Does it really matter? No, it's just a curiosity that I didn't really think of until now. In any case, we dropped the Wolf Dragoon forces in our way, and we took out the power grid. This allows us to land dropships for valuable reinforcements. As we can hear, they need assistance on the flanks, because again, Yosha is really ripping into them. So this is a pretty bitter invasion, right? It's not like, oh, now the tables have turned. There's plenty of fight left on Luthien, and with mercenaries in the mix, it's even more concerning. What we won't necessarily, I believe, face or realize is that on top of the Wolf's Dragoons, the Kel Hounds are also here. So it's 2 different mercenary companies basically on loan from the Federated Commonwealth. That's why they were kind of contracted with first. Through a loophole, they're able to be on the planet, and that is a big shakeup from what we were expecting to face on this world. And because no patrol was issued, there was no forced disposition to know about. Not that the Draconis Combine would necessarily label what's there. They're going to use ambush tactics like they did like we heard about in the briefing, but we would have had at least a better sense of the other forces, perhaps, which could have helped. In any case, that's a successful mission. I really enjoyed that mission. I liked the scope of it and the scale of it. The fact that it took us, half of the mission more or less just to take the airfield, and then we had to push on to the power generators, and we would do that obviously at the end. But it took so long just to get through that with such a massive amount of firepower arrayed against us. It gives you a real sense of scale and a sense of accomplishment in a way, because you start off the game maybe new to the style of gameplay and learning the ropes and everything else, and by this time we have 5 assault mechs. We know how to fight. We have our experience spent to really build up our skill upgrades on our pilots, and we're not only going through the entirety of this long mission, but we're cutting down swaths of the enemy. You get a real sense of having come a long way from Sibco training on Huntress, which is pretty cool. Anyways, just a couple more missions left for the campaign. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this playthrough. I'll be playing through this game some more, just for the fun of it on my own. I really like this game. So thanks so much for sticking through it. And until next time, take care.